Hi, my name is Kevin Buckley and I'm a veteran retoucher. And in this retouching tutorial series, how Photoshop jobs really work, we've got Kuhl, a world-renowned photographer. And what we're doing is we're going over a job from beginning to end. If you're joining us now, you missed a couple episodes on why you would hire a professional retoucher, how you do image selection, and then we did the first image already. This is the second image in the series, and what we're doing is we're taking off all the layers on this image, starting it from scratch, and then building the layers up layer by layer until we get to the final image. And that's something what you would turn into an agency if you were hired to shoot automotive photography. All right, let's go.
Okay, so we have another point Magoo shot, and this one I originally said we've got extensions on right and left, and we did use them. So there we go. So let's.
This shot is hands down my favorite out of the whole set. I love this shot.
Oh, great. Because it's the talent in the shot that really makes it up right there.
100%. I mean, that's where your eye really goes, you know.
All right. So this is the finished product again. So why don't we deconstruct it a little bit? We're gonna go back to the original. We're gonna turn off the layers. Okay. So this is where we began. This is the original part of the shot, and this is what we started from. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And so you can see there's some things that are going to need to be done right off the bat. One of the things that you mentioned right away was that the parking strips are kind of off kilter. And so we're going to need to fix those. There's general retouch cleanup, of course. One of the things I did mention too, almost like the fence actually, was to take out those palm trees, but I did end up leaving them. But I'll talk about that when we get to them.
Okay.
And so first thing I did for this one is create the pano. So we used two images, and like I said before, we used a separate one for the car in the middle, but we used one for the left and one for the right. Now, these panos don't always work out. FYI, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I'll just create a pano. Sometimes they take a fair amount of retouching to get them to fit together, and this was kind of one of them. Sometimes you could throw them into Photoshop and it'll just do it. If you use PT GUI, you could throw them into there. Sometimes it'll do it. But sometimes it won't. So sometimes you do need to do them yourself. And so this is one of those ones that definitely needed some fixing as we went. So I think that's the original pano. And you can see there's some adjustment there.
Yeah.
There's the straightening of the parking meters. And that wasn't so easy too. I think that parking meter I had to recreate. I had to re-illustrate it because the angle wasn't there.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering how you were going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the things in retouching that can be a little tough. When you have to start illustrating it, it'll slow you down. So that's something you gotta watch out for when you're initially saying how many hours it's going to take. Blah blah blah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So there we have it, and you could see kind of over here. At least I can see it's getting a little stretched on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to fix that. So on this one, same as the other one, the sky recommendation was a great recommendation. So we did drop in a slightly, different sky. We added some texture, kind of goes back to the horizon. And we also brought back some of the parts that were a little blown out in the sky. So this was getting blown out. Now, again, from like a fine art standpoint, you don't want things blown out, but from a commercial photography standpoint or something that wants to be edgy and aggressive, you do want stuff blown out. It looks cool. So sometimes you can do that. You just have to be careful where you do it. And I think this amount of blowout is good and actually works great with the talent and the narrative. I'll get to that in just a bit. Okay, so one of the things that this side is looking too stretched on, I thought, was the shadow. I felt like the shadow was going on forever. And that wasn't that wrong. I mean, it did kind of go on forever. It was late day, so the sun was low. But I thought bringing the shadow into the shot, the end of the shadow, helped with that kind of warping effect that was happening. So that was one correction there. Again, so much better. Yeah, you got to go into the car. These are all about the car, so you got to make sure your car looks pretty good. And we'll go in really tight here. And you can see, so we have some lens flare issues right off the bat. You can see. Some of them are corrected by adding in the new car, some are not. You can see that you either have crew or you have, it's open set, you've got people just standing around. So those kind of things need to be eliminated. And also this side is kind of sinking into the background. So you kind of want to separate that from the side. This is from the Pano, so you can see it doesn't quite match up yet. So there, we put the car on top. We brought back the shadows here. We got rid of some of the lens flare issues. Lens flare is fine. Sometimes it's fine over the car. But when it goes over complex parts of the car, you know, and it's pretty small where it just looks like a kind of a smudge when you zoom out, you got to get rid of it. You can always add lens flare back in. You know, there's one over here I didn't take out. There's some stuff happening here that I left in because it's not under a crucial part of the image. And so there's the car. And let's open up the talent. Okay. So again, you went out, you shot this. You can see we put it in small, take a look. This one I never really enlarged. I kind of like the size. It looked like it kind of fit there. And I think it kind of fit the narrative. And the kind of the narrative that I was looking for in this one was as an individual image, you know, the guy's walking by the car and he's got a beautiful sunset over here. Now we blew out the sunset because we want to keep the eye on the car. The car is the one that stays, you know, with the correct exposure. But instead of looking at the sunset and the beach, he's looking at the car, you know, so he's looking back. So that's kind of what I was going for on that one. And then
The car's just that beautiful.
yeah. So we can add the treatment in there. And then it's a pretty long shot. So you recommended, you know, stretching up the sky, stretching up the map a little bit so we can make it a little more manageable for the crop. So there's lots of different ways you can crop this. It goes nicely, whichever way you do it. Yeah.
Great, man.
And we'll do a little before and after. So that's the way it started. And that's where we ended up.
All right, if you enjoyed the video thus far, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell so you'll know when the next video comes out in the series. Now, in this particular episode, we went over the pano, how you would make a pano, some of the trouble with making panos, and adding talent as well. In the next episode, we'll have 2 more images we're going to do in that episode, and then we're going to continue down the line where we take off the layers and add the layers back in so you can learn how to make these yourself. All right, thank you for joining us, and click on the next video if it's up.